Next up, I'm very excited to have Kathleen Fay joining us from the Pennsylvania Credit Union Foundation, where she is the Executive Director. Kathleen, are you there?
I'm here. Hi. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Hillary. And thank you, everyone, for being on the webinar and for staying through to this point to hear about financial reality fairs. As Hillary said, I'm the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Foundation, and the foundation provides funding to credit unions and nonprofit organizations for credit union growth, professional development, disaster relief, and our primary funding is for financial literacy initiatives and materials that come through the credit unions and then ultimately could end up at your schools. So much of what the panelists just talked about, and I'm sure what many of you on the call also do, really can be reinforced by holding a financial reality fair. So I'm really happy actually to kind of be last in line here because I think this is a nice way to wrap up all of the different kinds of things that you do in your classroom into an actual practical application. So with that, how can you help your students to become more financially capable? And the answer to that, we hope, is a financial reality fair. So what is that? So a financial reality fair is designed to help students to understand how to use their money responsibly. It's an experiential program. It's a real-world exercise that takes the students through choosing a career, determining what their entry-level salary will be. We have it customized for each geographic area around the state. And then the students go through 17 different stations and they make decisions about their housing, their transportation, their clothing, their food, all of those different things. The volunteers that are working with them are doing everything they can to upsell them. Just like when you're out there and you're going to buy a car or you're going to buy furniture or whatever it may be, the salespeople have their motivation in trying to get you to purchase the most expensive thing, may or may not be the best thing for you. So we put the students through that whole exercise with the idea that they'll have some practice with it without actually having any money on the line, which is great. And with the careers also, in some cases, the students can choose their career. Depending on the size of the school, some teachers opt for us to just randomly provide them with a different career. I personally prefer when the students select their own. I've seen many times that they see how much money they're going to be making, and then when they actually go through the fair, they realize that money really doesn't stretch quite as far as they hoped. When they look at it in one big number, that big number really tends to go down quite a bit by the time they're done with the fair, and sometimes they rethink the direction that they may want to take with their careers. So the students do have to make budget decisions as they go through the fair. They have to decide where they're going to live, what kind of transportation they're going to use, and there's, I think, usually four options for each one of these different budget items. They have to choose a food package. How often are they going to eat out? How often will they eat at home? They can do other optional kinds of things, hair, nail, and spas, entertainment options. We, of course, include insurance. I'm trying to think of what, there's 17 in all, 17 different line items that go along with it. This last thing that the students do after they've gone around to all of the various booths and made their decision is now, and often what happens is the students have budgeted right down to the penny, and they think they're in really, really great shape. Then they spin what we call the wheel of reality. And on the wheel, there are about half and half of positive or negative impacts on a budget. And so it could be something great, like they get an unexpected gift, a cash gift, and then they have a little extra money in their budget. or it could be something that is an expense that they hadn't prepared for, like a flat tire. And now they have to decide, what are they going to change in their budget in order to figure out how they're going to pay for that flat tire. It's a great opportunity for us to have the discussion about using credit, when it's appropriate to use credit and when it's not, the good and bad uses. We do also incorporate talking about credit scores quite a bit and what that all means in terms of all of the decisions that they're making. The next thing the students do then, once they've spun the wheel and they have everything finished, is they go through and they add up all of their expenses. And then, of course, subtract it from their income and see where they've landed. Hopefully their bottom line is positive, and they then go through that entire budget with a financial counselor. And the financial counselor will go step by step through the decisions that the students have made and talk to them about those decisions. You know, what they really did, made some great choices, or maybe some things that they may want to think about. Again, talking to them about credit, and if they used credit, if they maybe had other options. Were they holding on to maybe too much cash and using credit instead when it was ultimately going to cost them money? Those kinds of things. We talk a lot about savings and the idea of paying themselves first. We do automatically deduct 10% from their wages to give them kind of a starting point. And each of the students has a starting checking account, savings account, credit card, and opportunity to take a loan for student loans, auto, and furniture. Because the students are tempted as they go throughout the fair to purchase the biggest car, you know, the biggest house, the best furniture package, sometimes they don't make the greatest choices. They all, you know, they think, oh, I can afford this, it's no problem. And the financial counselors will have to actually send them back. If they're upside down when they're done, they will have to go back, and they may have to make a decision about where they're going to be living or what kind of vehicle they're going to drive. Maybe it's going to be the bus instead for a while. The next thing that I'd like you to know is just how much the financial reality fairs have grown since we've started them here in Pennsylvania. They began with just one pilot in 2011. Since then, we have grown now. This year, calendar year, we'll have 66 fairs held, and I'm thrilled that we have had nearly 23,000 students that have participated in financial reality fairs since 2011. So why are we doing this? And why would you want to hold a financial reality fair? Well, of course, I would hope you'd want to increase the financial literacy of your students, have them engage in their preferred style of learning through an experiential learning program. As I said before, taking what's learned in the classroom and then being able to put it into practice in that kind of safe environment while they're getting that pressure with that upsell. But having to make those real life decisions as they're going through is a great way to see the light bulbs go off. It happens over and over again. It's wonderful. And of course, to create financial awareness at an earlier age before they actually have that credit card in their hand as they're heading off to college, or they could potentially already even have a car loan and a cell phone loan before they get themselves into trouble. The benefits, obviously it's a hands-on program. We try to keep it as real to life as we can. We do updates on the program about every other year to keep the pricing on everything as accurate and current as we can. The students then can gain a better understanding of how earnings work, taxes, deductions out of payroll, their spending, how to prepare a budget from zero up, how they develop the whole thing, and the importance of savings. And overall, the fair experience then instills in them the importance of really sound financial habits. So how could you bring a reality fair to your school? Here's the steps. I'm going to go through them on how you could do this. And the first thing that you would do is to partner with a credit union in your area. The program is owned by the credit unions. We facilitate it here through the foundation. The credit union has all of the materials that are set up for each one of the, we call them booths, which represent the line items in each of the budgets. Of course, the Wheel of Reality, and they provide the volunteers that come in to work with the students as well. We can have any number of students participate. Sometimes it's a classroom. We've had as few as 6. A typical fair has about 100 though, and they can be from any of your classes: economics, business, personal finance, family consumer science, whichever you think is the right fit. The next thing would be determining where you're going to hold your fair. And usually we hold them in the school's gym. There's no cost with busing, taking the students off site that way. The physical setup of the gym, the open area, works perfectly. And so it's the least expensive and really the easiest option overall. Excuse me. So next, with the host credit union, once you're in partnership with them, you need to set your date for the fair. They're typically held from 8:30 to 12. They usually last about 1 class period. It's entirely up to you how you want to do that, but the programs can be done within about a 45-minute or so time block. So with 100 students, we would bring groups in at a time, maybe a couple classrooms at a time, and have them go through. Another important part of the fairs that you would have to be taking care of would be the career research. And we do have resources that we provide to the teachers to help the students to do this. They're online resources, and the students can go in, put their geographic location, their preferred career, and then determine what the entry salary will be for that. Then when all of that information is put together, you would provide that to the credit union, and they would then merge all of that information into budget worksheets. Each budget worksheet is made specifically for each individual student, so it's personalized to them. And I think it's really important. I think when the students are choosing their career, sometimes they don't have realistic expectations of what their wages are going to be. And putting them through this exercise with the career that they actually have in mind can sometimes be a real eye-opener for them. So the budget worksheets then are prepared, and on them we also will populate a percentage of their wages for a balance in their checking account and their savings account. And again, then they will go through and list all of their expenses, subtract it from their income, see how they end up. This can be supported by maybe what you're already doing in the classroom, or we like the NEFI program, and I know one of the panelists also mentioned it, but it has the high school financial planning program, which are 6 non-commercial student guides on money management, borrowing, earning power, investing, financial services, and insurance. Excuse me 1 second, I'm just going to take a drink. The program is free, the shipping is included, and it is for grades 8 to 12. If you're interested in learning more about the financial reality fairs, we have put together an introductory video which sits on our website, and here is the link to that. Also, there's other information and resources available on our website, and I have the link to our website there as well. If you would like more information about the fairs, or if you would like to know what credit unions within your area are holding fairs, maybe visit one that's being held nearby to get an idea of what that looks like, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with them. Thank you.
Kathleen, thank you so much. One of our panelists from earlier, Kathy Joe, sent me a chat message and said that Chambersburg does one for all seniors for their English class in the gym. They just had it on November 7th. She thought it was great. The students that she's already had in a personal finance management class all came out with a positive balance. So I guess those folks that are taking it in the spring semester still have a little ways to go. So really fantastic and such a great program. Um, uh, I think one of my questions about it, I know you guys have just seen like incredible growth in what you're doing with these, you know, sort of, how many of these can you do? Like how far in advance do people need to get in touch with you to try and, bring one of these to their school? What are sort of the logistics challenges or things that people need to consider? They can't just say, hey, Kathleen, we'd love to have one, the day before Thanksgiving break. That obviously isn't going to happen. You need time to plan. So, what are the realities of that look like for you guys, and sort of what's
Sure.
involved in, like, you find somebody, you play matchmaker, like, talk me through a little bit like what that process is like.
Absolutely. Here's what typically happens. If one of the schools or teachers contacts me, then, as I said, put them in contact with a credit union in their area that's receptive to holding a fair. Some of the credit unions, excuse me, I'm sorry. Some of the credit unions have their own kit. We call the wheel and all of the materials, the setup that goes into the gym, we call that the kit. So some of the credit unions actually have made the investment and purchased their own kit. And when that happens, then that's wonderful. They can take it from that point forward, and everything is great. If, though, the credit union needs to use a kit, the foundation has purchased 5 of them, and we have them in different locations around the state to be shared by the credit unions within those areas. And so I keep a schedule of when all the fairs are being held, particularly the ones that are using any of those 5 kits. So once the date is set between the school and the credit union contacts me to make sure that the kit is available for that day. They then really take it from that point as far as recruiting the volunteers. We do need about 20 volunteers to successfully run a fair, again, depending on the number of students. I'll give you an example of one of the huge ones. Reading School District, Reading High School, for the last 2 years, has held financial reality fairs over multiple days. They have so many students in their senior year that they wanted to be sure that every one of the students had the opportunity. So from Monday to Thursday, the fair was set up, and each day we put a couple hundred of students through the program. It was just absolutely amazing just to see that. And they do it in January too, which is challenging with the weather sometimes, but we've just gotten incredibly positive feedback from them about that. So as far as being able to hold it that way, that's pretty much the process. As long as one of the kits is available and the credit union is able to recruit enough volunteers to hold the program, everything else falls into place nicely.
That's fantastic. I think, it's fantastic to see that you guys have made this investment really in bringing this to schools across the Commonwealth, and what a smart choice to have them sort of strategically positioned so that they're not having to go back and forth from Harrisburg all the time. I'm imagining that wheel is probably not the easiest thing to transport every place. I'm envisioning it in somebody's back seat all the time. So I'm really excited and glad that you could be on the webinar today. I did want to mention we had another comment come in from one of our participants. Deborah Heil from Fanet Metal said that First Ed Credit Union has done the Financial Reality Fair at Fanet Metal for the past 2 years, and that her personal finance class helped organize it last year. So what a cool way to get students involved in, actually the setup and what have you, and what a great connection to make there. I think that's just really, really neat. And I think all that I've heard, and I've had the opportunity to see a couple of these in person, and it's really interesting to see sort of these light bulb moments that students have. It's one thing to sort of take them through this whole notion of budgeting, but there's something about the energy in the room in one of these, and somebody, people are kind of like, oh no, what am I going to do? Oh, I've got to make an adjustment, or it's just sort of, it really is neat to see. So if you haven't seen these in person, I would definitely encourage you to, maybe see if you can go and see one live, see what it's like, get in touch with Kathleen and see maybe if there's one in the area that you can just go and experience yourself, or, sight unseen, watch the video, say, hey, yes, I want to bring this to my school, or figure out how we can make this happen, get in touch. So I wanted to put in a plug before we go. Kathy Jo actually mentioned earlier that her school her high school has a credit union branch in the high school in Chambersburg, and Kathleen will be joining us on February 28th to talk about high school credit union branches, what they are and how to start one. And so I think she's going to be joined by somebody from a credit union that's worked with a school district to bring a credit union branch on campus, which is, again, another really great experiential learning process. And another, the Credit Union Foundation has really gotten behind supporting these very meaningful efforts in the world of financial education. So Kathleen, thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to having you on with our evening group a little bit later, but then also seeing you back with us in February. So thank you again.
Thank you.